on a call with a client. A lot of our law firms, if not all of them, did get at least the first round of PPP, and then we've had several. Most of them, thankfully, their businesses didn't end up being hit too hard last year. But there were a couple that were for a number of reasons. But we got one of them had to get, or a couple of them had to get the second round of PPP. And I kind of like how the managing partner was talking about this yesterday, because people have seen the PPP as free money, and I think it's affected the mindset, around how we're managing that free money in our business and what we think about it. And no money is free, right? I mean, we think it's going to get forgiven. We don't know that 100%. But she was saying, we've invested $1 million of a loan into our business. And if it's that loan that's sustaining us, then we've got much bigger problems, right? And we can't, and I kept telling this to another client, you can't keep calling it a cushion. They kept using that word, oh, we still have a cushion. And I'm like, you don't have a cushion. The PPP is not a cushion. It's, it's dwindling. If we don't have a sustainable, revenue generating and collecting business, then we don't have a business. And basically we're just kicking the can down the road. So we have to make decisions now to focus on revenue and cash flow in the short term and in the long term, and stop looking at this, PPP as free money. But it is interesting because that mindset has changed. I've seen it, in how the firms are being run, but also the individuals that are using the services. I'm sure they've got PPP money. They can hold off on my payment for a while,
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's going to be different in plaintiff's work than it's going to be in defense work. I'm curious, Joe, have you seen anything or heard anything coming out of your firm just about insurance companies being slower to pay? I remember that coming up last year a little bit.
Not any more than usual. The same
Okay.
clients that are slower pay insurance carriers are the same clients that are slow pay insurance carriers. That hasn't changed at all. Where we hit an issue is having the ARs, having a system in place to follow up on ARs. That's where we hit road bumps.
Who does that in your organization now?
That no single person does that. That is primarily a function of a lot of it's going to be attorney driven. Some of it's going to be office manager driven. So kind of a mix.
Sure. That makes sense. Well, let's
but then when you bring it up.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, kind of like what Mike said, when you bring it up to a client, hey, there's this payment outstanding, a lot of them are very apologetic and just say, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. We know it's out there.
Sure. So, what about you, Justin? Do you have any challenges in this area?
I don't. Let me rephrase that. I don't have challenges in collections as much as I do retainer replenishment. I don't collect in arrears for almost anything.
Yeah.
What I do is I structure the process to have a flat fee payment, half of the flat fee for the service plan that they've chosen, and then I account for variables along the way in the engagement agreement by saying, if something happens where I'm not in the driver's seat anymore, then we'll have a conversation about that, but we'll probably have to switch to hourly just for that narrow thing that I have to address.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then if we do, then I ask for a retainer. So the people usually are happy to replenish the retainer as long as their matter moves along in a reasonable way.
Yeah.
If they haven't heard from me in a long time, and then the next thing they hear from me is me asking for money, that's not a good. That we probably the representation will continue as long as I'm on the ball with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like what you said because it's tying into what Mike said about relationship, right? It's having that relationship, but it's also just that consistency of communication and them seeing the work that you're doing and it justifying the price that they're paying for the cost. So yeah, that's huge.
And I'm also, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Go right ahead, Justin, go.
I just had one other quick thing I was going to add. I've also seen that when I do it that way, it's always putting in the client's mind the trade-off for this service for more of that I'm paying for. And so it's always putting the ball back in the client's court to decide, is this worth it to me?
Yeah.
Rather than, you already did the service, thank you so much. Now I'm going to negotiate whether I want to pay you for it or not.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Mark, did you want to jump in on something? He looks like he froze a little bit potentially. Mark, did you want to jump in or no?
Yeah, my point was that sure. I don't know if we got an unstable connection here. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I think you hit right on it. The communication helps in every way, on every angle. It helps with keeping clients abreast of where you're at. It helps them stay engaged with you. It keeps you top of mind. It certainly makes the phone call about being behind on a payment a whole lot easier if you're regularly talking to them. So I think that's a great thing to stick with.
One of the things I thought I might share is what we noticed. So, one of our clients is Stack Legal. And we've got clients all over the place in terms of practice areas, right? And what we noticed at Stack Legal was when she was small, her first, I'm using small loosely because I know like how we define small is all different, right? But when she first started Stack Legal, it was her and like 2 other lawyers, right? So when it was 3 of them, even 4 of them, she had 0 issues with it's not that she had 0 issues with collecting, but she did it all herself. And so she, just like Mike, she collected, something stupid, 99.9%. Like it was crazy the amount of revenue that she was producing with those 3 lawyers. And she collected all but like $214 or something like that, Now she's particularly on top of it, right? I mean, she is organized. She cares about collecting. I think they were doing all the right things in terms of, communicating with the clients and everything. But once she started growing, that's where it started to get more challenging because a couple things were happening. And she's got all companies that, are all over the place, just like Mike. Like some of them are maybe solo people, freelancers, couple people, but then some are, bigger entities that have accounting departments that lost track of it or whatever. And the CEOs, the founders themselves are getting these emails with the invoices. So, I mean, those are getting lost in the founder's inbox, right? So now it's like it got to the point where she had like 6, 7 lawyers. And I think once the firm was starting to scale, and she had her office manager doing the collections, like to Joe's point, what they're doing at LBBS, it was just growing. So it was growing because she wasn't touching it anymore. And there was the wrong person was in the role because that person abhorred these phone calls, right? So, there's like this level of procrastination, and we all know that feeling in our gut, right? Like when it's like the worst job I ever had was telemarketing, like cold calling is what this feels like. And not only, so not everyone is cut out for this job. If they don't like doing it, you're probably not going to get the results that you want, right? And if they see it just as like an administrative task, you're probably not going to get the results that you want. So we saw a distinct shift in her collections when we took it over, not because we're that special, but we are. But we've got, a member of our accounting team that she's just phenomenal. She genuinely likes making these phone calls. Some of them are hard, don't get me wrong, but she is like just the kindest, nicest. She truly cares about these clients as people, and so when she calls them, she's like, it's almost like a little salesy too. Like she'll say, how was that vacation with your family last month? Or like, is your mom feeling better? I know she was kind of sick last time we talked. Because you end up talking to the same people over and over again. And she's like, listen, my goal is for these people to pay, or at least pay something, but for them to not take my call. And if I'm rude or uncomfortable or nervous, they're not going to answer my phone call, and then I'm not going to get my job done. Right. And so, yes, it's a tactic, but it's just the funniest thing. She genuinely cares. And most people just hate making these phone calls. So I thought I would just point out too, just the who's doing it can make a huge difference in your abilities to get it done. But also, like, the solution was not going to be for Sarah Stock to take it back. You're trying to scale and grow a company, right? So I thought I would offer that piece of how we were able to really improve collections, at Stock Legal. I think it was something stupid. Like, when we took it over, it was like $280,000. And within like 9 months, like by the end of that year, we got it down to like 65 grand. Wow. And that wasn't just chipping away at what was old AR. It was also continuing to collect on the new stuff that popped up. Right. So sometimes it's a scale thing too, right? It's just the volume and staying on top of that volume can be a challenge. But Sarah was particularly good at it too, not because of her personality, although she's got a great personality, but also to everyone's point so far about that relationship. The relationship is with the lawyer. So there's something inherently incentivizing for them to pay when the lawyer's still doing work for them, and they don't want the lawyer to stop doing work for them. So we did develop, it's actually a very regimented process, where a reminder goes out through the system. If they've not paid a week later, they get an email. If we don't hear back a week later, then they get a phone call. So we don't call them until it's been a solid 2 weeks overdue, maybe even 3 sometimes, right? We're not trying to harass them, especially in the beginning. But if they don't take our call, if we make 2 calls, they don't take our call, we leave voicemails, we'll send an email and then copy in the lawyer. So something about seeing that lawyer's name, it's like, oh wait, I better pay because I need them to actually keep doing my work, because it's easier to kind of not answer our call, and then there is a step where, the lawyer, it comes from the lawyer, and that piece is always amazing to me, how someone can dodge us for so long, and then the lawyer sends a damn email and they get the job done, So I thought that was the second piece of what I just wanted to offer, was that idea of, process and keeping a consistent process. If it's not consistent, because I will tell you, people know if they don't pay and they've gotten a call from Latrice, they're going to get another call from Latrice, right? Because typically the people that don't pay regularly, don't pay one time, it's typical that they're a regular offender. But again, it's not usually because of bad intentions. It's just they're busy, they're discombobulated, and they forget. I mean, that's happened to me before, where it's not about my intent. It's just I just keep freaking forgetting to get it done. So there is something about that consistency that people know, okay, I don't want Latrice to call me again next week, so I'm just going to get this taken care of. So that's getting the right person doing the work, but then also ensuring that they are delivering consistently and not pushing it off or procrastinating or saving it to once a month. It's that process that really helps drive results as well. I'm always amazed too at how little bigger firms can value old AR or outstanding collection issues, because what I've seen, I mean, I know a firm that will go unnamed, not a client, that has, 30 lawyers, and they're sitting on $2 million of AR that's grown over, a few years, but they don't even do anything about it. Because, when I guess cash is flush, you think, oh, we're fine, we don't want to rock the boat with clients, whatever. And yet then you have a downturn and you're sitting on 2 million you could have collected, more timely. So I would encourage you all too to be thinking about your mindset around collections and Um, you know, yes, there's such a thing as the value of your time, right? Do you want to be, Mike shouldn't be spending an hour trying to collect $100, right? I'm not talking about $100, but something like, especially with Livingston Barger, Joe's firm is a good sized firm. I mean, they've got 18 lawyers cranking out work. That's, a decent amount of clients. And that's something that can really grow over time. I mean, you're in a cash crunch. If you've already got that process in place, you're doing the best you can, right?
Yes.
But if you don't have that process in place, it's low hanging fruit. It really is.
Well, before I started my own firm, I worked for another startup, and I don't know what the universal numbers are, but we actually collected about 60% of the work that we did.
Oh my gosh, 60%?
Is that high?
No, that's low.
Okay. Yeah, I said, not happening with me. That's why I put so much stuff in place to try to collect on the front end when everybody likes me and are happy to pay in advance and everything. I just, at 30-member firm, maybe you don't feel that, but a solo practitioner, I definitely feel $100.
Oh,
Well, if you're at 65% realized, then think about it this way: look at your hourly rate, and then multiply that times 0.65. Now that's what you're working for.
Yes.
I don't think anybody wants to take a 35% pay cut.
Amen, brother.
yeah. And, like when we took over Stock Legal's collections, because she was at like 92%. We have a case study sitting on our website about it. And we got her up from 92 up to 98%. And
Awesome.
we have another client who does more plaintiffs type work, and we do trust replenishments for them and the collections piece. And we always budget for them to collect 85% because, and they do a lot of family law. It's a little bit harder to collect in criminal and in private criminal and family. You're typically dealing with lower income earners, right? And they didn't ask for or want this a lot of times. And so then they're forced to pay for something maybe they never wanted, right? And it's rare that people actually like their divorce lawyer. It's just so emotional. So we always budget for 85% collections, but we got them up to 92 as well, which we felt pretty good about that. So we've been slowly collecting data since we started, and I can't wait to be able to. We have a benchmarking tool. I haven't incorporated collections yet, though, because we just didn't have any real good data. But after 3 years, I'm excited to get through the end of this year because we'll have a good amount of data to actually put something out there that I think will be helpful for firms. Because, small firms don't share data. They just don't. Even a lawyer I know that's one of the most open, willing to share people that I know, I'd ask them if I could share their financial report, but redact the names. They're not even in the same geographic area, right? But I wanted to show a potential client an example of a financial report that we put together. And this person, that's one of the most open sharing people I know, said, "Oh, that's fine, but just change about 20 of the numbers." So, and I'm like, okay, but like, why do we care? Why do we care so much about, what other firms like? So you can't, but it's interesting to me because all of our clients, all these firms want this data, but no one's willing to share it. And I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it now, but Clio does a good job. I think they do this legal industry report every year. I always get a lot out of it and appreciate it. But it is going to have a certain level of bias to it just because it's all of their firms and their clients that are probably naturally a little bit more tech forward and tech savvy and like thinking about their business in a different way. I think if you were actually getting benchmarks from small firms across America, I think they would look very different. I mean, I'm not shocked anymore when I talk to a 5 to 10 lawyer firm anymore that still doesn't use a billing software. I'm just not shocked anymore. Like I'm shocked, but not shocked. Or that are still physically mailing out invoices. 30, that firm I was telling you about, the 30 lawyers, they got like knocked for 6 during the pandemic because They had to send in their office or whoever was their billing person to physically print out all the bills. And they had this poor lady driving around to the lawyers' houses and dropping off their printed bills so they could review them. How in the hell does that make any sense?
What year is it again?
Oh man. But I think that's actually a really good point on this collections topic is your invoicing process does drastically impact your abilities to collect. Yeah. Justin, how do you do invoicing? I just can't remember. You use Cleo.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jamie? How do I do invoicing?
Yeah.
It's all electronic through Practice Panther.
That's right.
The software that I use. It needs to be, I'm glad that your team is on board because it needs to be more systematized as to when they go out and everything, but it's all digital. I do think that there is something weighty about getting something in the mail if you're trying to collect, but I just don't have the time or the interest in doing that. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's statistically proven or if it's just like how people feel about it.
That's true. It could just be.
I do know the stats around collections when you take electronic payments versus not, and it's like 40%. And it's you collect 40% more than you otherwise would, and you collect 40% faster than you otherwise would when you accept electronic payments. There's another firm, not a client, I love picking on big firms. They're like 25 lawyers, and you still have to make a phone call to their office to pay by credit card. I mean, it just like, why why would you make it difficult on your clients to pay? Like, you want them to pay. And that was, and actually this particular firm, like I've used them for some legal work for myself, and they've had to hound me a little bit to pay. Again, not bad intentions, but like if I could just click on a link and pay through the link, this would have been done a month ago, right? But you're going to make me call, or I had to end up enter all the information to process a bill pay in my bank, because who writes those checks anymore?
I would say a number one rule of business should be, if it isn't, it should be never make it hard for people to give you money. You know?
Absolutely.
That's unbelievable. Well, I can tell you one thing I've seen probably over the last 5 years. I have seen a big uptick in, when I see a new a website, when I see a law firm launch a new website, more often than not now they have a pay portal right there on the front menu bar. And at first I thought, I'm not sure about that. The more I thought about it, the more I'm like, that's a great idea. You know, there's got to be a reason why they're all doing it, because it's I would say it's the norm now.
Oh, it is. I do have a client that is very opposed to taking credit cards. And I do get that to a certain degree. I mean, my opinion on it is that credit card fees are just a cost of doing business today.
Yep.
I mean, I don't like paying the QuickBooks fees or like a credit card processing fee. I hate it. But it's so easy for my clients. As soon as they get an invoice, they just click a button. It'll store their information. They can pay easily. If I wasn't doing that, I'm going to be paying a person to have to open the mail, sign it, stamp it. I still get checks from Livingston Barger. I get checks from three clients I get checks from. And so, if you've got an online bill pay system that's automatically sending the checks, like that is helpful. Don't get me wrong. That is more efficient than someone handwriting checks. But the person writing the check, putting it in an envelope, stamping it, putting it in the mailbox or dropping it or whatever, all of that it costs. And so I always encourage, we'll just take electronic payments. You can do ACH and not do credit card. I mean, LawPay is also incredibly slick in accepting payments. The other issue is like, it going into trust versus operating. Like, only send the trust link if you're worried about it. Don't even give anyone your operating link. Just use your trust link and then move the money out of trust into your operating. So I think, if you're not using a billing software, I mean, obviously you might have fewer clients too, where it's not a big deal, but it does help you a lot in that collections process.
Well, from a risk management and compliance perspective, if you're using a third-party processing system, then you don't have to worry about internal policies and procedures about who's handling credit card information, how it's being stored and destroyed, and all that stuff. You don't even touch it.
100% yes. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. When I was at the big firm was when, what help me, Mike, what's the regulatory environment around the credit card processing?
I mean, there's just, you got to have all kinds of safeguards about who handles it and what the actual law is.
It's called something, and now I can't remember what it is. But we were a hot mess at the big firm because we had a whole collections department that was taking credit cards, right? It's like 3 letters and I can't remember what it is. But it's like CC something or whatever. But there are standards that have been in place for a decade. Like I thought they were all new, but they've been in place for a decade, but no one was really complying with them. And so this regulatory group, I don't know why I can't think of what it is now, but I'm like trying to Google it real quick because now it's driving me crazy. You know, and it's like it's something on the tip of my brain, and CCI or something like that. Anyway, so they set a deadline, right? So they set a deadline. You have to be PCI, PCI compliant by whatever, June 30 of that year, or October of that year, whatever. So that is what lit a fire under us because we just didn't. I had no idea that these were actually the rules for like a decade. We just weren't doing it. And this is a massive organization, right? Literally paper documents with people's credit card information and address and everything else in physical files in our office, just chilling, sitting out on desks. I mean, the process that we had to go through to become PCI compliant, and we had to do a whole like strategic initiative dedicated just to getting that done to mitigate, the risk. And we started using a different software to accept payments, in that secure way. But our people were still putting the information in, right? So it's like the issue is how they were collecting it and then what they were doing with it. So that it was a huge expense to go through that process. You might as well like just start out with things as efficient as they can possibly be.
What is the rule on? I'm having an issue with. I love LawPay, but they don't store credit card information, which means I have to go and ask it for the client for the same credit card multiple times.
Yeah.
What is the PCI regulation on the firm storing the credit card information?
Well, I think we might have to verify this, but I think you can store it. It's just how you store it and who has access to it, right? I'm pretty sure like you can have a credit card with, like an authorization form, but it's got to be like in a file that's in a locked drawer in a locked room. But the regulation is, I think you have to lock it like every time you leave or whatever, right? So it's like, but the type of information you collect is limited, right? So you can collect the credit card information, but like you can't collect social security numbers, or if you're going to have a social security number, you got to keep it house it in a different way. Now LawPay though, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking Practice Panther. So if they pay through Practice Panther, which is synced up through LawPay, I'm pretty sure Practice Panther has a client portal like login, and that would be saved, right? So I wonder, does Practice Panther's payment portal save it or no?
It does. LawPay fees are cheaper. So and LawPay, I believe they told my administrator that they're working on the ability to store. But
Okay.
yes, Practice Panther will do it. It sure will.
I was going to say, I do know like my case does, and Clio, like once you actually have that, user ID, because now your stuff is only stored within the client's user. It's not the firm. So you don't have access to it. It's the client themselves. It's their information that they put in that's stored and they process the payment. It's not you storing it. Right. So that, I mean,
yeah.
that makes sense as to why that would be compliant. Anything else that anyone wanted to share on this topic that you thought might be helpful? All right, well, cool. I thought this was a great discussion. In 2 weeks, I'm so grateful for Caroline. I hired a new person to do our internal marketing, Caroline, about 3 weeks ago, and she's rocking it. You all probably got an email from me this morning. That's been our first e-blast since January. Yikes. And we're having a little anniversary party in the St. Louis area in June. So there's that in there and a bunch of other things. But we're getting better at planning out what the topics are in advance for the LFLCCs. And in 2 weeks, our topic is going to be talking about revenue and, how do we set like short-term, long-term strategies within our operations that help drive revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, if we don't have revenue, we don't have a business. And we can get caught up, I think, in like operational efficiencies and administrative work and things that are non-billable, or even biz dev work that's not fruitful. I had a client a few years ago where she was spending 20 hours a week just popping around all these different associations and stuff under the umbrella of business development. But at the end of the day, like, she wasn't really getting many referrals. I was like, okay, we need to figure out and decide what associations are going to actually bring you a return on your investment financially, and which ones bring you just joy, right? Because your return can be joy, or your return can be dollars. And if all of them are only bringing you joy, then we probably need to shift priorities here, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks, is like, what are some ideas, short-term, long-term, within our operations that we think can help better drive revenue. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie.
all right, I hope y'all have a good day.
Thank you all.
Do the
Thanks,
same.
everyone. Good to see you.